I just watched the pilots go by.
Have a good show.
God will thank you. I'll catch you tomorrow. Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on News Nation. All right, so they can't crack open a cold one just yet. At least not for those Republicans in Congress trying to pass President Trump's one big beautiful bill before the holiday break.
Are you still a no?
Got a good meeting. Found out a lot of new information.
Are you still a no on the rule, sir?
We got another meeting.
They will lose the vote today if they vote on a rule to pass the Senate version as is.
All right, tonight, why the president's promises are stalled. Concerns from conservatives. One of the key holdouts joins us live in moments. Plus, is it a flop for gamblers? Why the top Democrat who represents Las Vegas is not yet ready to fold on this one. We are showing you some of the lesser-known parts of the 1,000-page bill. Also tonight, the new face of the Democratic Party, is he? Why President Trump cannot stop talking about the Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani, what the president wrote today. And we are following the very latest, both out of the Big Apple and out of Boise. Two major developments in the Sean Combs and Brian Kohberger cases. But first tonight, here from the Hill, a potential traffic jam heading into the 4th.
I think the bill will get passed. The question is whether it will be today, whether it will be tomorrow, could we run through the weekend? I think that's the question.
This bill is a deal with the devil. It explodes our national debt.
All right, a live look over at the White House. A live look on the floor of the House of Representatives. Republicans are stuck. They don't have the numbers to pass the one big beautiful bill, even after a meeting at the White House between holdouts and the president himself. That is at least as I sit here and talk to you at 6:02 this evening. Will Republicans defy the leader of their party, or will they come together and figure out how to deliver on his campaign promises? Chris Steyerwalt, Kelly Meyer with me tonight, but first to our Joe Khalil, who is live up on the Hill with what he is hearing at this hour. Joe?
Yeah, Blake, as you mentioned, right now we are at a bit of a freeze on the House floor. President Trump's bill is stalled, and this was sort of the scenario that we thought was most likely, frankly, heading into today, because you still have those hardline conservative members, the House Freedom Caucus folks, who are not entirely convinced, many of them, that this bill is not going to add to the debt or the deficit, which is obviously one of their major priorities. And even after meeting with President Trump at the White House, which we heard was a good, positive meeting, after hours of meeting with House leadership, they are still not convinced yet. Take a listen to Andy Harris, the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, what he told us this morning.
The rule vote will fail if he brings it to the floor, and at some point he's going to have to decide whether it pays to try to make changes, get it back over to the Senate. Right now, what the president should be doing is calling the Senate back into town.
Meantime, there are still those moderates who are worried about Medicaid cuts. We've heard from several of them privately. Not many of them publicly have said there are going to be no votes, but certainly there is a concern there. Speaker Johnson's going to have to deal with it, Blake.
All right, our Joe K. live tonight in the Capitol hallways. Joe, thank you. And just down the road, other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, President Trump hosted several meetings throughout the day today with some of those holdouts from within his own party. Our Kelly Meyer there throughout the day with what she is hearing tonight. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. As you mentioned, President Trump is watching that traffic jam down Pennsylvania Avenue. But I'm told that President Trump is, quote, feeling good after a day of meetings with swing state House Republicans and House Freedom Caucus members right here at the White House. The West Wing, a revolving door for members summoned to the Oval to meet with the commander-in-chief. I'm told Dr. Oz was also in those meetings with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance to ease concerns about cuts to Medicaid. Trump posting this to Truth Social earlier today in defense of the GOP mega bill, writing, quote, "The one big beautiful deal is all about growth. If passed, America will have an economic renaissance like never before." It is already happening just in anticipation of the beautiful bill. Deficit cut in half, record investment, cash, factories, jobs pouring into the USA, MAGA, end quote. So White House officials aren't expecting to get this done today. They are remaining optimistic about tomorrow and that this will be at the president's desk, ready to sign by the July 4th holiday, with literal fireworks going off afterwards. So we'll keep an eye out for that, Blake.
All right, our Kelly Meyer live at the White House tonight. Kelly, thank you. Back on over now, a live look at the House floor. It is quiet right now. In fact, that very slate that you see on your screen, they've had that up for hours because they're basically at a stalemate right now in their offices or negotiating amongst themselves, just trying to figure out where to go from here. Congressman Ralph Norman, for example, has expressed many of the sentiments from the conservative House Freedom Caucus.
I think the founders and the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence would be astounded that we're adding debt to our children and grandchildren who are defenseless. What the Senate did is unconscionable.
That, by the way, is a Republican, not a Democrat. And here he is with us tonight, Ralph Norman, Republican from the state of South Carolina, with us once again here on the Hill. Congressman, thanks for taking the time. I have no doubt you're a busy man up there. It sounds like you are a no, sir. Do you envision yourself getting to a yes?
Here's where we are. We had a meeting with President Trump today. He was gracious with his time. He was gracious to lay out what he's doing for the country, and he was making the case why this bill is not perfect, that it ought to be passed. You know, I, along with many others, have had trouble with it because, you know, the debt situation, the illegal aliens on Medicaid, able-bodied Americans that could go to work, not working, the IRA subsidies, all that. Right. Was something that we just had issues with. What this president has done is lay out where we are and lay out the fact that we can live the fight another day. There are meetings. I just left a meeting of about 20 people who had concerns like I did. They're getting the questions answered. And so I think we'll know in about another hour how this is going to go. And we all want what's best. Yeah. But we all want what President Trump wants. He's doing a great job, and we'll see if we can get there.
So it begs the question, Congressman, is there anything that President Trump can do himself or the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, can do himself to turn to sort of assuage the concerns of yourself and the other 19 others or whatever the exact number is at this hour who just aren't there yet?
President Trump did it. He met with us. He was at the table with us, had us in the White House, and went over, answered every question, and went over why we ought to pass this bill. Again, it wasn't perfect, but it's good for the country. That was his message, along with all the other great things that he is doing. So, you know, we've got to get over some other hurdles. He told us a lot of things.
What's the biggest hurdle, as you see it, Congressman, at this moment?
The biggest hurdle with me was the IRA, the subsidies for electric cars, the subsidies for wind and solar, you know, the illegals that were, you know, voting into Medicaid field that were getting a check. Those were real concerns, mainly the IRA credits. He answered a lot of questions on that made perfect sense. So I think after today, if we don't vote today, we'll vote tomorrow. It's not going to come before the House until the votes are there. If it doesn't come if we don't get the votes, then it won't be brought up.
Other side of the aisle, here is Congressman Ro Khanna. I want to get your reaction.
Mr. Speaker, I never want to hear the Republicans lecture about fiscal responsibility again. The last president to actually balance this budget was Bill Clinton.
Can you disagree with that at all, Congressman? Because the national debt grew $9 trillion under Donald Trump in the first term. It is going up and to the right as far as the eye can see. Did Ro Khanna say anything wrong there?
What Ro Khanna failed to mention was we never got one vote on passage of any tax cuts. We will not get any vote on any bill Republicans put up. He brings up Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton had a House and a Senate that made him pretty much balance the budget. It wasn't him. He would be spending.
But I guess the point is, Congressman, is the spending on your side and both sides is out of control, and there's nothing really to stop it.
Well, I disagree with that. This is the first step in stopping it. Yes, we got to the 1.6 trillion in cuts over 10 years. Was it small? Yes, but it was a step forward. This hasn't happened in over 20 years. So you got to take the first step. And I think we will take that, and if this bill passes, it'll put us on a trajectory of downward spending. Now, you know, we've got to have the people that have the willingness in the House and Senate to do that. And right now, it's been meager at best.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ralph Norman in the middle of it all, up there on the Hill, as he says, maybe within the next hour or so we should know. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. With us now. With me now here on the Hill, Chris Stirewalt, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Oh boy, they got to figure this one out.
Well, I mean, it doesn't get better from here.
From here, right? That's the issue.
So at the beginning of this process, in the House, they said, well, we don't like the bill, but we're going to pass it so we can keep the process going. And then the Senate said, well, we don't like the bill, but we're going to pass the bill to keep the process going. And then the House said, okay, well, we really don't like this bill, but we're going to pass it one more time just because it's going to get better on the other side. And now here we are at the end.
Right.
And it doesn't get better. And it's not going to get better later. And the question for the Republicans in the House is, do they want to disrupt this, blow everybody's 4th of July, do this, just so that they can come back later? They can come back in 2 weeks and have the same dog's breakfast served up for them. It doesn't get better later, so there's a lot of energy behind eat the frog first, get it done, and get out of here.
So that's the question, right? Do they take what the Senate gave them and just say, okay, we're done, or does the ping pong basically continue back and forth? And here's the thing, Chris. The House Freedom Caucus, those conservative folks, they trashed this thing in a 3-page letter today. You heard the congressman sort of lay out some of the concerns there, and you got to wonder how they would just eat it after that.
Oh, you'd be surprised what members of Congress will eat. Having narrow majorities is hard to pass big legislation.
Right.
But there is an upside, and the upside for leadership is if everybody is the deciding vote, then whipping the vote is a little easier because there aren't big numbers where you can hide. So back when Republicans used to have big majorities, right, in the Boehner and Ryan era, when they'd have these big majorities, well, the first 20 people who say, well, I'm not voting for this, I can't vote for this, now there's a big number of folks. Right. This time, they can afford there's only 3 tickets off of the rec, so it's a lot easier to figure out who needs sweated, who needs cajoled, who needs rewarded.
Lastly, at the end of the day, these are the president's campaign promises, and it would extend the tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime for the most part, on and on, a lot of the things that we heard down the campaign trail. Is this going to, if/when they end up getting behind this, basically show the power of Donald Trump?
Well, the power of Donald Trump is in no doubt in Washington, D.C. in the year of our Lord 2025. None of that is any question. What's pushing this bill over is that the alternative is a huge tax increase. And that, at the core, is what the leadership has known all along, is that if this bill doesn't go through, then there's a massive tax increase, and they can do it now. But they also are going to put in a $5 trillion increase to the debt ceiling, and they're going to hear about it.
Right.
They're going to hear about it.
If not this, then that, right?
If
and
not
that
this, then
is the tax increase. Thank you, sir. Catch you later in the show. Appreciate it. All right, live pictures now. New York City as we await the defense team for Sean Combs to speak. This afternoon, I don't think went the way that they expected it to go, and we are awaiting their comments. When that happens, you will hear it. Plus, 1,000 pages, and among the many items in the bill, the gambling industry is now wondering who put an ace up that bill's sleeve. What Las Vegas is watching tonight. I'm Blake Burman. Thanks for being with us. I'll be back in 4 minutes. I got a chuckle out of Chris there. That wasn't a bad one, right?
History.
Continue to follow the breaking news tonight out of New York City. Sean Diddy Combs denied bail. He will, though, remain in custody until his sentencing. It comes hours after a jury found him guilty on 2 of 5 charges. Diddy acquitted of racketeering, conspiracy, and counts of sex trafficking, but convicted on 2 charges of transportation to engage in prostitution. Our Marcus Espinoza live outside the courthouse, where we expect Marcus to hear from his attorney shortly.
That's right, Blake. We do expect to hear from the defense team here any minute now because that hearing is wrapped up. So a couple of things happening behind me right now. First of all, the van behind me, that is the van that picks up the Sean Combs family. They will be likely exiting very quickly. Also, another note here, emergency services were called because somebody fell unconscious inside the courtroom, unrelated to anybody on either member of either side, the defense, the prosecution, or anybody involved in the trial itself. Somebody just in the courtroom, they are being helped, and that's being addressed at that moment right now. So we wanted to clear that up. A lot of people are talking about that. Nothing related to Sean Combs, nothing happened to Sean Combs inside the courtroom. So just to make a clear point on that. But on the hearing, right, that's the hearing that just took place here. Obviously, no bail for Sean Combs. Now they have set an October 3rd hearing for sentencing, but that most likely will get changed. That both sides want this to be an expedited sentencing, so they are meeting next week to begin that process. So that date will probably move quicker here. They're meeting soon, and then that date will get moved up most likely, Blake.
Our Marcus Espinosa, live there outside the courthouse in New York. Marcus, thank you. With me now, the criminal defense attorney, Brian Claypool. Brian, hello. Nice to talk to you. Thanks for being with us tonight. We focus on the bail hearing this afternoon, right? But the day, of course, started with the decision from the jury. Can you explain how he was found guilty on 2 of the lesser charges, still federal charges, though, and not the other 3?
Yeah, hey, Blake, great to be with you. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised on the jury's verdict. I thought the jury would find Sean Combs guilty of at least one of the sex trafficking charges associated with his ex, Cassie Ventura. I thought her testimony was compelling, and she exhibited that force and coercion that P. Diddy did to her. And also there were some supporting witnesses, right? Some people that worked for Combs and even the male prostitute who saw Cassie, beaten and, unconscious. Right. So I was a little bit surprised with that one. I thought there should have been a conviction on the sex trafficking for Cassie. But look, on the RICO charges, which are the criminal enterprise charges, there's no chance that the prosecutors were going to get a guilty verdict on that, because they've got to prove a couple of things, Blake. First of all, they've got to show the jury co-conspirators. There were no other co-conspirators indicted. That's the whole premise for criminal enterprise. Remember that case against former President Trump in Georgia with the election interference case? There were 16 co-defendants in that case for racketeering. That's typically what you need. You also need an agreement and a conspiracy. There wasn't really any evidence that Combs entered into any agreements with anybody to carry out a criminal enterprise. So I was not surprised by that.
All right, and then 2,400 miles away, another case, Bryan Kohberger today, admitting to killing the 4 Idaho college students, and in November of 2022. He is the attorney for the family victim spoke afterwards. I want to get your reaction on the other side.
962 days ago, we lost our Maddie, our kind, loving, vivacious, and caring daughter full of purpose and promise. We are grateful for the gift of her life, and we have grieved the loss of that life during each of these 962 days. We love you, Maddie, and we miss you.
The families were not happy, Brian, as you know, that the prosecutors decided to go with this plea deal and accept it. Explain why they are able to and why they did it in this case.
Well, look, the prosecutors, it's up to their own discretion. They have a moral obligation, Blake, to talk to the victims' families, right, to get their input on whether the death penalty should be sought in this case. But they're not legally obligated to use that information from the families of the victims in making their decision. But I'll be frank with you. I'm disappointed, not only as a lawyer, but I'm a single father of a 19-year-old who's a freshman in college, and I can relate to what these family members are going through. And look, at the end of the day, I personally feel like this was a cowardly decision by the prosecutors. Why? Because they have a pretty seal-proof case with the physical forensic evidence that puts Kohberger right there at the scene of the crime committing these murders. So if you know as a prosecutor going into a trial that you're pretty sure you're going to get a guilty verdict, why wouldn't you take this guy to the mat and then seek the death penalty, because I look at it from a deterrent standpoint. Where's the deterrence in this if you're just letting this guy, hey, I did it, go hang out in a jail and get your free meals and work out at the gym for the rest of your life? I would be traumatized if I was a father of any of those victims.
Brian Claypool with us tonight on these two big cases, Boise, and we continue to watch for the attorneys there in New York. Brian, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Blake.
Still much more ahead tonight here on the Hill. The big story in this town, the big, beautiful bill. Republicans trying to figure out where to go from here. On the other side of the break, we're showing you some of the changes that were made to it, including why they are watching this in Las Vegas in particular. The gambling world going, huh? What happened with this? When we return.
Today.
All right, welcome back. Just about 6:30 here in our nation's capital. The clock ticking for lawmakers to try to pass President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. The president wants the bill on his desk by Independence Day. But in Congress right now, the House is trying to figure out if they can accept what the Senate sent over to them. And at least as of this moment, it appears to be at a standstill.
The rule vote will fail if he brings it to the floor, and at some point he's going to have to decide whether it pays to try to make changes, get it back over to the Senate. Right now, what the president should be doing is calling the Senate back into town. I think it's going to become pretty clear the Senate's going to have to be involved one more time. I don't know why they left town, to be honest with you.
This bill is a deal with the devil. It explodes our national debt.
Now, there are provisions being shuffled in and out of the bill as it makes its way through Congress. For example, the Senate stripping a provision that would have barred states from regulating artificial intelligence. They also removed a provision that would have sold off public lands. Joining me now is the Republican congressman from Montana, Ryan Zinke, member of the Appropriations and Foreign Affairs Committee. He was also the Interior Secretary in the first Trump administration. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Nice to talk to you as always. I know that public lands issue was a big deal for you given your background and obviously being in Montana, but I think it goes to the point of, you know, the House Freedom Caucus right now, they're worried about spending. Lisa Murkowski had her own issues in Alaska, right? And it seems like everyone has their own little thing. Do you blame the House Freedom Caucus for holding this up at this point?
Well, you know, actually, I'm an optimist. I think we're going to get it done tonight. You know, at the end of the day, I reminded my colleagues, hey, it was a lot more conservative when we sent it over to the Senate and what happened. Senate washed it. You know, it came back in a worse position. Sending it back over to the Senate, I don't know why they think it's going to be different the second time. So there are some small irritants, I would say. No poison pills. You know, certainly on public lands, it would have been an extinction event for the Republicans had it gone forward. But that's out of there. You know, it probably has too much salt, not enough pepper. There's some small gambling issues in it that can be corrected, but I don't think that this is the vehicle to correct it. Overall, there's no poison pills in it. If you're a fiscal hawk on one side, you know, you're probably not satisfied. If you're moderate on the other side, you're not satisfied. Right. So overall, I think this is the best we can do at the moment.
Best you can do at the moment. It sounds like you think the Senate would make it worse. You know Trump well. You were in his first cabinet. You know how Republicans react to the president. It sounds like you think that they're just going to go forward and eat what they don't like.
Well, I think, you know, President Trump's a great deal maker, and it's not a perfect bill. There's going to be some calls, meaning that the president's going to work on adjusting some of the provisions that I would say more irritants. You know, certainly this is not going to be the last bill, certainly of this Congress. And we do have to address the rise in debt. You know, I thought it was pretty rich, the Democrats on this side have said, oh, this is the debt. I mean, we're 36 trillion reasons why
but isn't it
unrestrained
rich,
spending is a problem.
Yeah, Congressman, isn't it rich for both sides at this point?
You know, I think that's a fair criticism. But, you know, if you're a fiscal conservative, it doesn't go, you know, far enough. I think the first bill on the House was a better bill if you're a fiscal discipline and a hawk. But this bill, what this does do, though, is to make sure that Americans don't get the largest tax increase in the history of this country. It takes 1.4 illegal immigrants off the Medicaid rolls. No tax on tips, no tax on the elderly. It shores up, homeland defense for a secure southern border and northern border. There's a lot of good in this bill, and not every bill is going to please everybody. You look at it, you look at the SALT guys that, for state and local taxes, they think 40 grand's not enough. Most of us think that's too much. But at the end of the day, I'm seeing some movement and break. And look, again, I'll go back to if the members think that you sending it back over to the Senate is going to get a better deal, one of the reasons why we're here is it was a worse deal from the Senate. And I don't expect their modus of operandi is going to change at all. So let's get the bill across the finish line. Let's have a good 4th of July, and let's take the win up front.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ryan Zinke, Congressman from Montana, thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Talk soon. So you heard the congressman there talk about gambling, right? He brought up the gambling issue. A live look at Sin City right now. The spot where President Trump says he first got the idea of one of the pillars of this bill, no tax on tips.
A waitress came over and I said, "How are you doing?" She said, "Not good, sir." "Why?" "The government is killing me on tips." And she looked at me, she said, "Sir, there should be no tax on tips." I said, "Say it again."
But in Las Vegas tonight, there is a sudden ace up their sleeve that many didn't see coming. It's another provision in the bill that was added over in the Senate with major implications for gamblers. As the Las Vegas Review-Journal puts it, quote, "Gambling and casino industry experts agree that proposed tax changes would make it more difficult for professional gamblers such as poker players and sports bettors to turn a profit." Now, here's the issue. Right now, you can deduct 100% of your gambling losses on taxes. That means, and I know that this is a big number, but it means if you have, let's just say, $100,000 in wins, right, and $100,000 in losses, you can ask a second grader or a third grader, did you make or lose money? You didn't make anything, right? So you don't pay taxes on that. But under the one big beautiful bill, you can only deduct 90% of those losses and not the full amount. So what does that mean? Instead of having $100,000 in losses, you would have $90,000 in losses, or you would owe taxes of $10,000. Again, this is a made-up number, but you get the idea. The bottom line here on this is, for those out there in Las Vegas, for those out there in the gambling industry, you could have to pay gains even if you didn't win any money. Vegas is represented by the Democratic Congresswoman Dina Titus, who heads the Congressional Gaming Caucus. She joins me live here on the Hill. Congresswoman, you just mic'd up, I was told. Thank you for being with us. This is a big issue in Vegas. I was just talking to your colleague on the other side of the aisle from Montana. He brought it up. And the bottom line here is now all of a sudden the gambling industry is going, wait a minute, what happened here?
Well, this bill is bad enough for my constituents when it comes to health care and Pell Grants and renewable energy. But now this is one more thing that adds insult to injury. A little provision stuck in there by the Senate that takes away what you can deduct for any kind of gaming losses. This has been in place for over half a century, and now they're changing it so they can just grab some more money to pay for those tax breaks.
Do you know who made the change?
Well, nobody's taking credit for it, so it was kind of done by committee in the middle of the night. And when we got the bill, we went through it piece by piece because they're always sticking something about gaming in there. There's still a bias against gaming. And we found it and thought, well, this is not good for people who enjoy coming to Las Vegas to gamble. We're not talking about only professional poker players. We're talking about, the average people who want to play a game of poker or pull a slot machine handle.
Part of the bill is no taxes on tips. And I would think that, as the president outlined, this would help Las Vegas. But you and the rest of your colleagues on the Democratic side are voting against this. Why?
Well, the devil's in the details, and you can also talk to the Culinary Union, and they're very skeptical of this approach as being something that he used during the campaign. I absolutely support no tax on tips, but you have to do it the right way. You know, it's capped, so it only lasts a short amount of time. It will only apply to people who make a certain amount, so most of the people who earn wages with tips won't even benefit from it, and it doesn't really do any good if you don't raise the minimum wage at the same time. So I have a bill to do that. Stephen Horsford does, but this is not the way to do it.
I got to run, but this gaming part is making the rounds on the internet and social media. For those folks, do you believe that it stays in or not?
Well, we're going to try to take it out. If it doesn't go back to rules, we can't, and then I'll introduce a separate bill. But it pushes people into the black market if they don't do regulated gaming because they have a tax disadvantage, and the black market doesn't pay taxes, isn't regulated, doesn't help with problem gaming. So it's bad for the industry as well as for the player.
All right, maybe a separate bill coming. We'll see. Dina Titus is a Democrat from Las Vegas with us tonight. Thanks for running to the camera. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Still to come tonight. With all of that in the backdrop, has the president found his new political target?
Frankly, I've heard he's a total nut job. I think the people of New York are crazy. If they go this route, I think they're crazy.
Not one, not two, but 3 days in a row that the president and the White House are now talking about that man on the left. What Donald Trump said today about Zohran Mamdani when we return.
News Nation tonight. Big headlines call for a night of big guests. Bill O'Reilly, Stephen A. Smith, James Carville, all live for a full hour on Cuomo. Tonight at 8/7 Central, only on News Nation.
All right, breaking news that we continue to follow in New York. You can see Mark Garagos. You probably know the name and the figure well. He's speaking live there, not officially a part of Sean Diddy's representation, but essentially involved with the team. Let's listen live.
Interesting thing about prison is it's a timeout, and he's had a lot of time to reflect, and he's in a good place mentally, and frankly, I'm proud of him. And by the way, for those of you who may miss it, the defense didn't put on a single witness. The defense tried their case within the prosecution case. And at the end of the day, it's a colossal failure by the prosecution.
All right, Mark Garagos, again, who's basically part of the team, saying that Sean is thankful that the prosecution never made the case out to be what it actually was, and you just heard the very last bit there of what he had to say. If more of the attorneys come out to speak as we await the next steps in the case, we will take it to you live here on the Hill. Want to get into, though, sort of back to one of the ongoing threads here in Washington, which is the president and what he is trying to do with his upcoming days here. Obviously, we've been watching the One Big Beautiful Bill, but there has been another thread with the panel as well. Full panel here with me now, with the president as well. Full panel with me now. Dan Cannon, former Battleground States Director for the Biden and Harris campaign. Denise Gitson, News Nation political contributor. Chris Stirewalt, host of The Hill Sunday and senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Julia Manchester, national political reporter for The Hill. Guys, can we drop that for a second? If Diddy's attorneys come out and speak, we will take it live. There's lots going on here in Washington. One of the things I wanted to get with you, can we show the tweet of what President Trump said today? Pop it up, about Zohran Mamdani. He said, as president of the United States, I'm not going to let this communist lunatic destroy New York. Rest assured, I hold all the levers and have all of the cards. Here's what I want to talk to you guys about tonight. He's trying to make Mamdani the face of the Democratic Party. Is he not, Denise?
Absolutely he is. And I don't think it's going to work. I mean, I feel like this is one of the things about politics where a lot of it is about the visual. If you look at Mamdani's face and you don't listen to what he says is actually pretty terrifying, especially if you're a Jewish person. I cannot even remotely understand how people put up with that kind of rhetoric. But when he says it, he's actually rather pleasant. He's not like an angry, hurtful, hateful person. And I feel like President Trump is coming out as the bad guy coming out against him. And by punching down, he's actually elevating Mamdani's, national relevance. And I don't think it's going to work. Not with this specific person. There are people this could work with. I'm not sure it's going to work with this. And I think he's wasting his efforts and really positioning himself in a bad light.
He's trying to elevate him. The question is whether or not your party wants that.
Well, look, again, I don't think the New York mayor...
There was a little bit of a sigh there.
No. Well, I'm going to make a comment on Deese's point on Mamdani's actual statements and his rhetoric. The biggest one that's out there that I think is giving people the most heartburn is the lack of condemnation for the global intifada remark. He did not say that. He simply refuses to condemn some of the allies who have said that. And
Dan, that's a big non-refusal, though.
Well, sure, but it reminds me a little bit of when, Reverend Wright was happening with Obama in 2008, and he had the "goddamn America," pardon my French, line from the pulpit, and Obama was asked, over and over again to condemn his own minister, and for a while refused to do that until at some point there had to be a reconciliation of what he really meant, and then there was a whole speech on race. And it's a difficult pivot point. But the thing that Mamdani is doing so well is, I think, not taking the bait on that and coming back to cost again and again and again. And when Trump attacks him, he will fire back, but then bring it back to New York, not make the emphasis on him, and make the emphasis on the very issues that won him the election in the first place.
It's interesting talking to Democrats, asking them if this will, if they're afraid it will work. I think it could work in some congressional races, particularly in New York and New Jersey. That's why you've seen figures like Tom Suozzi and Laura Gillen on Long Island really distancing themselves from Mamdani. You also have Republicans trying to tie Mamdani to some Senate candidates. There's Abdullah Al-Sayed, who's running in Michigan. They've tied him just because of their views on the war in Gaza, et cetera. But overall, I don't know if this necessarily sticks. You also have a number of other high-profile races coming up this year in New Jersey and in Virginia, with Abigail Spanberger and Mike B. Sherrill both running for governors of those states. And they are not Zohran Mamdani. These are moderates. So I don't know if it sticks.
What's Trump doing here?
Are we deporting the people we don't like politically now? I assume this is what you say, trolling, and he's going to play up Mamdani and trying to make him the face of the Democratic Party. But we're going to deport the people. So I understand the Republicans who said that the Democrats used lawfare to try to prevent Donald Trump. The president is going to order people deported whose politics he doesn't like. Mamdani is a naturalized U.S. citizen. He's not here on a green card. He's not whatever. He went through the process. He became a citizen. So that makes him a citizen. That's what he is. And one of the things that we've noticed in the Trump administration is it's not enough for them to undo the things that they say were done to them. They want to do the things that they say were done to them back to the people that they don't like. And they want lawfare, and they want regulatory stuff, and they want to do all this stuff. And it's a downward ratchet that takes us farther and farther away from being able to have a decent politics.
No, I have to agree with you, Chris, because, it's just, what kind of a country do we want to actually live in, right? Like, if you were the target of weaponization, and most Americans would agree that President Trump absolutely was, it doesn't help to elevate what we want to be as Americans if we continue to bring that standard down, the lowest common denominator. I do think it's more rhetoric. I think that they can't do anything before Mamdani actually does something, if he ends up actually standing and obstructing any sort of ICE raids. But, the question is also, like, does this even help Trump? Every time he goes out on a limb like this, he may strengthen his base, but he's bringing down his overall appeal, and he needs as much popularity as he can muster right now with all of the broad legislative efforts that he's putting into what he's trying to get done.
Okay. But I'll give you the last word real quick.
Is it rhetoric? Eric Adams had legitimate criminal charges against him, and the Trump DOJ was pressured by Trump to drop those charges in an effort to get him on side on policy. He's very happy to use this when it suits him, Chris, to your point, and I think we could expect him to use it negatively against Mamdani if he really wanted to.
All right, got to leave it there. Pressed a little bit for time with the breaking news. Thank y'all, appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill, they say, be all you can be, right? How the Army now is redefining their slogan, potentially. I'll explain. Elizabeth Vargas reports coming up as well. She'll be following the fate of Sean Combs and Brian Kohberger. That's in 7 minutes. My take, other side, when we return. Today. All right, if you're just getting home, ending your day, want to show you what's top in the Hill, trending here on the Hill. Some of the top headlines. First up, Maxwell Frost getting a little bit of a lashing from the Congresswoman Virginia Fox. Do we have those headlines? Rip through them? It's coming, I'm told. Nope. Some of the biggest headlines here. Virginia Fox lashing out at Maxwell Frost. Secondly, Mike Johnson and the big, beautiful bill. That is, of course, the big story that we are following here in Washington. And if we have a third, do we have a third? We'll see it here. Here it is. Paramount bends to Trump 5 takeaways on 60 Minutes settlement. Those are just some of the biggest stories on the Hill. All you have to do is go to thehill.com, download the app as well if you would like to see some of the biggest stories. All right, time for my take now. Be all that you can be. It's a slogan in American culture, just as recognizable as just do it, or the happiest place on earth. And on the week of America's birthday, it's important to mention that the Army has been hitting its recruiting goals as of late. However, there's also a new frontier that requires casting a wider net in that search. As the website Task and Purpose reports, top executives from Palantir, Meta, OpenAI were recently sworn into the Army's reserves as lieutenant colonels. And the hope is that they can start a trend for what is known as Detachment 201, an attempt to bring some of the top tech minds directly into the military. As the Army describes it, quote, the Executive Innovation Corps, a new initiative designed to fuse cutting-edge tech expertise with military innovation. Now, military might used to be defined by tanks, bombers, machine guns. We saw some of that with the B-2s that flew into Iran recently. Technology that the U.S. and only the U.S. military possesses. And now, as we head into the 4th, a new view of how we might be expanding on the definition of military might, exactly how you would hope here in 2025. That's my take tonight. I thank you for watching us. I'm Blake Burman. We'll be back here tomorrow. Elizabeth, it starts right now.